Hello everyone, this is JPL, and today I am joined with,
Matthew here.
and we are the Council podcast name in the brackets. Okay, today we have a very lovely podcast for today, and today is our top 5 musicals of all time. Yes, musicals.
Yep, this should be pretty good.
Yes, is there anything you would like to say before we start this whole conversation here?
Um, Nothing that I can really think of. We haven't seen every single musical.
No?
So if your favorite didn't make it on here, there's a chance we haven't seen it, or maybe we just didn't like it.
More the former than the latter, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, this will be somewhat of a fun podcast. This is a lot of these musicals on my list are very good for me. It's difficult to label which one I think is better than the other because they're, in my opinion, all very good musicals. And so I just label them in whichever I feel like I listen to most in this case here. And so, yeah, if we don't know how these podcasts normally go, we usually start with number 5 and we go talk about each other's 5s, and then we go to the 4 and 3, and you know how math works from there, if you understand my meaning. So yeah, let's get started with number 5. And Matthew, do you want to start?
Sure. My number 5, I put Les Mis, and this is kind of a well-known musical, and it's a lot of people's favorite. But I really like the music. The soundtrack is incredible. It's very epic, very sweeping. And then in terms of, the only production of this I've seen is the 2012 movie. And while I think there are problems with a few of the actors and their singing, it's really a great film. And the music shines through. Great story.
Of course, of my focal point of the Les Mis world is I saw the Liam Neeson movie. I saw that first, and I was so I got really upset when they announced the musical because the Liam Neeson version was not a musical, and it's like, what the heck? Why would you turn this thing into a musical? And I was so unaware of everything at the time, and so it's a good musical. It's not my favorite. There are some good, fun songs, very catchy tunes, but overall, it's I enjoy it more for the story than the actual music.
That's fair. I mean, the story itself is probably the strongest part, even of the stage productions of the musicals.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, is that everything we have for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to my number 5, which was actually a last second change for this podcast. And this one would be Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I'm not sure about you, but this was a childhood classic of mine. I would watch the movie that came out with this with Dick Van Dyke a long time ago, and I watch it almost every day. And love the music, love the songs. My favorite probably being maybe the classic Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or the Old Bamboo. Very fun, very classic, and I would highly suggest that you watch it yourself because it's very entertaining.
Yeah, I haven't seen this since I was a kid, so I can't really comment on the quality, but it is a very iconic film, and every once in a while I'll see something in a movie and it'll remind me of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, like whenever someone covers up a tunnel or puts a picture to look like a tunnel, that always reminds me a bit of the movie.
Yeah, fun times, fun times. Okay.
Yeah. Well, on to number 4. My number 4 is Beauty and the Beast, the Disney version, and it's really for me a toss-up between the animated and live-action versions. I enjoy the music from the animated version more, but I think the live action version is better just in general. But the songs are really memorable. Be Our Guest, obviously, and it's a lot of fun. It's very sort of magical fantasy, and you kind of have to go along with it and not analyze it too much. But it brings back a lot of nostalgia. I watched the movie a lot as a kid. Yeah,
Okay. First point of order is I don't know. I think this is for me personally. This is I think originated as a movie, and so this being the musical is very different to see the movie being a musical, even though it does count as a musical. So there's that one point, and then of course, I personally felt that the live action movie was terrible, um, for multiple reasons, and I will not go into detail about that. So yeah,
yeah, and that's a fair opinion to have. I mean, the live action movie, I like it more for the ambiance than anything in particular. Yeah, and also the Gaston song is infinitely better in the animated version.
of course. I mean, the
They removed
animation.
the they removed the best lines from that song in the live action version.
Hmm. Well, the point is, animation. There's a lot more that you can do in live action,
Yeah,
and that was one big thing that I had to disagree with the movie. The rest are very. Just watch any complaints about the movie, and then you understand my meaning here. But yeah, is that all we have for this one?
I think so.
Okay, moving on to my number 4. It's a musical that I actually was a part of working backstage, and that is Bye Bye Birdie. The actual story plot is ridiculous, and at points makes no sense. But the whole thing about the show is the music itself is actually really entertaining. It's different styles. It's hard to describe, honestly, because there's just a lot of weird things that go on in this play, and I can't really go into full detail about that. But about the music itself, there are songs, and part of the play is stylized from Elvis and his whole career at one point, and so the songs that he's a part of are like my favorite songs of the show, and I just every time I go into the shower I can't stop singing one of his songs. So there's that. And then just overall it's just very entertaining, and I guess this one reason why is because I was actually working a part of it, so that's one reason I got to listen to this song over this all the songs over and over again every night. So uh, and then yeah, I can't think of anything else to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment much on it.
Really, I can just jot this down as you had to be there to see it. You, you honestly, it's just that you had to be there. So yeah, moving on to number 3.
Yeah, my number 3 is Mary Poppins.
Okay.
And this is another one that I grew up with, and the music is, of course, iconic, and it's just a very joyous musical, but it has a really deep message. And I think with Saving Mr. Banks, if you watch Mary Poppins and Saving Mr. Banks together, you really get a very deep story that is very emotionally impactful, and the music itself is really great as well. A lot of iconic songs, and I grew up watching it, so yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I myself cannot speak too much into Mary Poppins because it wasn't something I grew up. I maybe saw it probably once or twice, but I was really little at that point, and I don't remember a lot about what happened. And at the time, I don't think I really was a fan of that movie because I don't know, I wasn't captured by its essence or something. And so I can't say because I've not seen that movie in over a decade. So yeah,
Yeah, and it is one. It might take a bit to get into. It is a little bit for young kids, but that's why I recommend watching Savoring Mr. Banks as well with it, as it really adds a lot to the story.
yes, and I do know that this is a very classic, very nostalgic movie, and personally, I'm not entirely looking forward to the sequel. For reasons I will not say anything about because I don't really want to get into a discussion here. But yeah, there's that.
Yeah,
Is that all you have for that?
I believe so.
Okay, moving on to my number 3 is Jekyll and Hyde the musical. I really love this musical. Um, for one, this musical here is partly the reason why I appreciate musicals now than I did before. And you can actually see the reactions to that very early on in my channel. When I reacted to the Inkpots, who really they are what made me enjoy these musicals even more than what I did before. And I'm very happy that I saw that, and I'm very happy to appreciate musicals now. And so yeah, Jekyll and Hyde, there are two or three songs that I would say are spectacular. One of my favorite songs ever. One of them being the confrontation where Jekyll and Hyde are fighting against each other, which I love it so much. I do want to reach the vocal level where I could do that song, and I can't wait to get to that point. So yeah, I love it so much, and it's very good. Good story as well.
Yeah, I've never seen the musical, but I've read the original story, and I like how they've taken a lot of these older stories that you wouldn't really imagine as a musical and then turn them into musicals, which kind of segues nicely into my second favorite musical, Sweeney
Okay.
Todd.
We saw that together.
Yeah, and this one, yeah, I saw the Johnny Depp Helena Bonham Carter movie, and I really fell in love with the music and the way it's written really interesting for a musical. It's very dark. There is a bit of comedy thrown in, and it's just it's based on a Penny Dreadful from Victorian era England, and those were, you know, trash novels that you could buy for a penny, thus the name, and they weren't really of literary value, but this one sort of lived on and eventually was turned into this musical, which is a really interesting sort of examination of different themes such as capitalism and sort of how that can get out of hand, and poverty, and all these different interesting ideas. And the music itself is really incredible. Yeah, it's one of the best musicals I've seen.
I will say that it's a very enjoyable musical. I, w- I wouldn't say it's the best one out there, personally. It is good, however, and I probably would recommend it, even though it's very gory, not a family picture.
No,
Uh,
definitely not.
yeah, I'm gonna be showing this to my kids. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it was an enjoyable one. I know I remember watching it the first time, the only time with Matthew a few months ago through a Skype call, which was interesting. Um,
Yeah,
and very well done, very well shot. Um,
yeah, this is really the peak of Tim Burton's career if you are interested in the musical. And he does a really good job adapting the musical to film. He doesn't, they cut out parts of songs and even complete songs, and it's really cohesive as a movie, surprisingly so.
Yeah, so yeah, probably would recommend it. The story is not my favorite because of the some classic storyline eras that I've never been a full uh, fan of. But besides those small nitpicks, very enjoyable. And is there anything else we have to say about this?
I don't think so.
Okay, moving to my number two, we have the classic Fiddler on the Roof. I was introduced to this in high school when we had to read the novel. Do you remember that, Matthew?
Yeah, um, I remember not reading the novel, but yes, that was we had to read it for one of our classes.
Yes, with a very nice professor. I actually did read it because I had never read that story before, and I was intrigued by it. It's very interesting reading the words and not knowing what the musical context is. It's just like weird because there's a lot of repetition. And it's like, what are they saying? And it's very funny. But once I actually listen to the musical, it's one of those musicals where I can listen to the entire musical and not get bored with each song, and it's very fun, and you can listen to this over and over. And plus, I have a fascination and a love for that whole time period, especially during the Holocaust. There's a lot of heart during that time, and it's very interesting to learn about the dark times there, and it's something I feel is a good thing to have around for our
Yeah,
common knowledge.
yeah, and I'm not the biggest fan of this musical, but the songs are really incredible, very memorable. I actually went to see an in concert version of it, and it's a lot of fun. And I've only ever heard the songs a handful of times, and yet I can still sing them along. So yeah, and it's a very deep musical when you actually look at the themes as well.
Yes, very nice. I would highly recommend it, even though the movie is like roughly, what, 3 hours?
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, but I would highly recommend it as well. Very classical, very nice time. You learn a few things there.
Yeah. Well, on to number one.
Yes.
So my number one is slightly less serious than some of the other ones have been. It's Rocky Horror Picture Show, which um a really campy, fun movie that it takes a while to get into it. The first time I saw the movie, I absolutely hated it, but it was so terrible that I had to show it to other people. And when I showed it to other people, I was laughing along and they were terrified of it. So then they showed it to other people, and it's kind of an interesting movie. The more you watch it, the more you enjoy it, and the more people you watch it with, the more you enjoy how uncomfortable it makes them. And it's hilarious and crazy and shocking and just sort of way out there, really strange,
Okay.
and good music as well.
Well, I cannot again say anything about this. I've never seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The only thing that I know about it is about Tim Curry in his
Yes,
little transvestite outfits.
yes, it's shocking, but it's that's kind of the point of it.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe you wanna show me that at some point,
Yes,
against my will, of course.
yeah,
But
and and
we'll see.
and I can't stress how much if you watch it once, you have to watch it a second time, and
Uh,
you have to watch it with a group of people, especially a few people who have already seen it and can sing along with you, and then a few people who haven't seen it yet and can be completely horrified. And yeah, it's just weird and hilarious and a lot of fun. Really great Tim
Yeah.
Curry performance.
I heard, yes. So yeah, that should be something to look forward to, maybe. And
Yep.
is that all we have for your number one?
Yeah. Go out and see it. I don't want to spoil anything.
Alright, so my number one is another one that actually got me a lot into the other musicals. That without the ink pots animatics, again, you can watch my reactions to the very first time to actually listening to these songs here, is the Count of Monte Cristo. Um, a very a very interesting story, really fun. I have a lot of trouble reading the book, and it's another one of those things where old books are turned into musicals. I believe we've had like what, three in this podcast here,
Yeah.
at least three. And so yeah, the interesting thing about this musical is that it's not available in English. Um, there are only a handful of songs from the musical that have been translated and performed in English. And so if you want to watch the full musical, you have to watch it in German or Russian, which I have. It's pretty interesting. And again, here's a plugin. You can check them out on Count Monsparkle's channel. Uh, so yeah, it's very interesting. I would say watch it. I love the story, and honestly, all the songs are like some of my favorite songs out there. I love them so much. I cannot just say it enough. And so yeah, just watch the musicals, listen to the music, and you have a good fun time.
Yeah, this is another one where I can't really comment on the musical itself, but I can comment on the story. I've seen a few different adaptations of it, and it's a really intriguing kind of revenge plot that, it has all of the fun of watching a character plan something and then having that plan come to fruition, but it's also a very deep thematic story as well.
Yes, I've seen almost every version you could think of it, and I would have to say my favorite version is I think the original 1930s movie.
Okay.
I feel is the best. Everyone's saying that the 2002 is the best. I'd say no, that's probably one of the worst ones, in my opinion. Ha ha ha! Fight me. No, don't. So yeah, uh, I think since we're at the end of the list here, if there's any out there,
Sorry, what?
honorable mention.
Oh, yeah. Again, I haven't seen the widest variety of musicals, but I do enjoy La La Land for its music. I think the movie itself kind of loses its way at the halfway mark, but the first half is really great. And then Sound of Music is really good. A lot of famous songs from that. Pretty much any of the Disney animated musicals are great. Yeah.
I have a big list of musicals I have on my computer here. So first things first, there's "Singing in the Rain," a very classic one. We should all know that whole song there. And then there's the Lovely Newsies, very fun musical. I would say the movie's a pretty good one. Big Fish is actually a nice one. There's one song in particular that I really love. And then, there's West Side Story that's very the musical's fine. The actual story itself, very let's not get into that. But yeah, there's a lot of good musicals out there. I've only heard a handful of them, and so yeah.
Well, I think that wraps this up, unless you have a worst musical.
I don't think I have one. So yeah. I believe that's everything we have, right?
Yep.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us on this lovely adventure, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.